Hey everyone, I'm Liz Ferry, and today I'm going to continue my crochet doll with a thicker body type. In part 1, I showed you how to begin the upper half of the doll's body. In part 2, I showed you how to finish the upper body and how to make the arms. In part 3, I'll show you how I made the lower half of the body. You can find a link to part 1 and 2 of this series in the description below. You can also find the link to the written pattern for this project in my Ravelry store. Now let's go ahead and continue where I left off at the back of the work. I had just finished making my doll's stomach and hips. Next, I'm going to create the lower half of the body. If you want the back of your doll to be flat, you could just single crochet as normal for a few rows before making your doll's legs. But if you want, you could do the same thing that we did at the bust to create a more curvy look. So, just like at the bust, I'm going to increase each side at the back of the doll for a few rows. Then decrease both sides for a few rows, and then I'll fold in the middle for a more realistic shape. I'm going to increase each side 3 times, but if you want yours to be smaller, you could increase just 2 times per side or 1 time per side. Or if you want it to be bigger, you could increase more than 3 times per side. First, I'm going to increase this side at the back 3 times. And then I'm going to continue to single crochet until I get back to the back of the work. And I'm going to increase 3 more times on the other side. Okay, I've finished my next 3 increases at the back, and I've gotten to the end of my row. Now I'm going to do one more row of the same thing. I'm going to increase the back 3 times at this side. Then I'm going to single crochet until I get to the other side, where I'm going to increase 3 more times. This is going to be my last row of increasing the back, but you can go on for as many rows as you like until you have a size you like. Alright, I've finished increasing the back. Now, to finish the back, I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to decrease 3 times per side at the back of the body for 2 rows. You should do as many rows as you did to increase the back. Since I just did 2 rows of increase, I'm going to do 2 rows of decrease. So, decrease 1 to 3 times per side at the back of the body, depending on how much you increased at the rear, and if you like, you could also decrease 2 or 3 times at the front of the body to finish the stomach in this part. For my doll, I decreased 3 times per side at the back of the body, and decreased 3 times at the front for 2 rows. So I'm going to decrease 3 times at the back of this side, then single crochet until I get to the front, and decrease 3 times at the front, and remember, just like when I increased to create the stomach, make sure to offset the decreases at the front if you don't want your doll to look pregnant. Single crochet until the back of the row, then decrease 3 more times at the back on the other side. Then I'll do the same thing for another row. And then if you want, you could do the same thing we did at the bust and fold in the middle to create a more realistic shape. Now that I've finished decreasing, I'm going to divide the row in half to make each of the legs. First, I'm going to make sure that my first stitch is at the very back middle of the work. If your first stitch drifted to somewhere else, like mine did, go ahead and single crochet until you're at the very middle at the back. For my doll, I single crocheted 2 times before dividing the legs. Next, I need to chain 1 for every 12 stitches I have left in my row. So first I'm going to count my stitches. I have 36 stitches in my row, so I'm going to chain 3. Then I'm going to divide the stitches I have left in half, so that I can find the number of stitches that I need to skip to create the leg holes. So since I have 36 stitches in my row, I'm going to count, starting with the next stitch, 18 stitches. Alright, so this is the 18th stitch. Now I'm going to skip all these other stitches, and I'm going to single crochet into this 18th stitch. But I'm also going to bring my chain in between these 2 leg wires, just like that, and then single crochet into that stitch. And I'm going to mark that as the new first stitch of the row. If you like, you could also mark these 2 stitches we just worked into on either side of the chain, at the middle front and the middle back of the previous row, because when we come back to make the other leg later, these 2 stitches will count as a stitch each on the other side, and so will the outer loop of the chain in the middle. Then I'll just single crochet into each stitch of this row, with this now counting as the first stitch. If you want, you could also decrease 3 times at the back to blend the leg in with the rear. Also, when working the chain at the middle, single crochet into the back loop of the stitch only, so that the outer loop is left out. That way we can work onto those stitches when we make the other leg later. This is the front loop, I'll leave this loop free, and I'll insert my hook behind that loop into the back loop, and I'll single crochet into that stitch. And I'll repeat that for each of the 3 chains in the middle. Before I go on, I want to mention how to do this if you had an odd number of stitches left at the beginning of this process, and the legs don't divide perfectly in half. Just round down to the next even number and divide your row in half, then count out that many stitches instead. Then, instead of doing a regular single crochet into this stitch after your skipped stitches, you would decrease this stitch and the next stitch together so that you have an even number of stitches in your row. Okay, I've finished with my first leg row. If you prefer, you could just make basic straight legs by single crocheting until you have the length that you want for the legs, but I'm going to use increases and decreases to shape the legs. First, I'll increase the size of the doll's legs by doing 2 increases at each side of the leg per row until the leg is the size that I like. I'm going to increase for just 1 row to thicken the legs, but you can go on for as many rows as you like. And of course, you can also add more or fewer increases to each side to widen the thighs more quickly or more gradually. If your doll's thighs are already wide enough, you can skip this step. Next, I'm going to slim the thighs. I'm going to decrease every other row so that the leg gets smaller little by little. To do that, I'm going to single crochet normally for a row before I do my row of decrease. Alright, I finished a row of single crochet. Now in this next row, I'm going to decrease just 1 time. It doesn't really matter where the decrease goes, I'm just going to put it at the back of the leg. Then I'm going to continue to single crochet until the end of the row. And now I'm going to do my row of regular single crochet before my next row of decrease. Then I'll repeat that pattern 1 more time and do 1 more row of single crochet. And 1 more row of decrease. That's going to be the last row of decrease for the upper leg. But you could continue if you want the leg to be thinner or longer, just keep following the same pattern. For dolls with shorter or thinner legs, add more decreases per row or skip the rows of single crochet in between the rows of decrease. For dolls with even thicker legs, add more rows of single crochet in between the rows of decrease, so that the leg tapers more gradually. If your doll's thighs are already thin enough but you still want them to be longer, just continue to add rows of single crochet until your doll's thighs are long enough. But I'm just going to end the thighs here and I'm going to create the knees. So to widen the front of the knee, I'm going to increase twice at the front of the leg, and decrease twice at the back of the leg, so that the front gets bigger while the back gets smaller, but the row stays the same size. You can go on for as many rows as you want. I'm just going to do this for 1 row to bulge out the front of my doll's knee. So I'm just going to single crochet until I get to the front of the work. And then I'm going to increase these 2 front stitches. Then I'm going to continue until I get to the back. And then I'm going to decrease twice into these 4 back stitches. I'm just going to do this for 1 row, but you can go on for as many rows as you like until the knee bulges out as far as you want it. Now to finish the knee, I'm going to do the opposite of what I did in the previous row, and I'm going to decrease 2 times at the front of the leg, while at the same time increasing 2 times at the back of the leg. I'm going to do this for just 1 row, just like I did to start the knee. But you should do however many rows you did to start the knee. Now I'm going to add a bit of fiber fill to the top of the leg. If you want to make the calves even bigger, you could increase 2 times per row at the back of the leg until you have the width that you want. I'm not going to do that for this doll though. I'm going to slim the legs until I have the width that I want for the ankle. To slim for the ankle, I'm going to do pretty much exactly what I did to slim the thighs. I'm going to single crochet as normal for a row, and then I'm going to decrease 1 time for 1 row. I'm going to repeat this 4 more times to slim the leg to the width of the foot, so that I'm making a total of 10 rows for this part, decreasing 5 rows with 1 row of single crochet in between each row of decrease. Alright, I've gotten to the end of my rows of decrease, If you want to make the doll's legs even longer, you could continue to single crochet until the calf is the right length, but I'm not going to do that for this doll. I'm going to create the foot next, but first I'm going to once again add a bit of fiber fill to the leg. Next, I'm going to increase to create the foot. I'm going to increase 3 times at the back per row and 3 times at the front per row until the back of the foot is a good size for the heel. I'm going to do this for just 1 row, but you can go on for as many rows as you like. Now I've increased at the front and back to make the heel of the foot and the front of the foot pop out for a row. Now I still want to make the foot longer without making the heel pop out anymore, so I'm going to do plain single crochet at the back of the foot, and I'm going to keep increasing 3 times at the front of the foot. That way the back of the foot will stay the same width, while the front of the foot gets bigger. I'm going to go on increasing just at the front for just 1 row. If you want, you could continue to make the foot longer by continuing to increase 3 times at the front of the foot until the foot is a good length, but for my doll the foot is already long enough, so I'll end the heel next. But I still want to make the foot wider, so I'm going to decrease 3 times at the back of the foot and single crochet normally at the front of the foot until the foot is a good width. That way the back of the foot will get smaller, while the front of the foot stays the same size. I'm going to go on decreasing this way for just 1 row, but you can go on decreasing or increasing until the foot reaches a width you like. Now I'm going to finish the foot. To do that, I'm going to continue to decrease 3 times per row at the back of the foot, but now I'm going to start to decrease 3 times per row at the front of the foot too. I'm going to continue to do that until the hole at the bottom of the foot is small enough to sew closed. So I'm going to continue decreasing for 2 more rows. So I've finished decreasing for 2 rows. Now I have 9 stitches left in my row at the bottom of the foot. Now I'm going to slip stitch to the next stitch of my row to end the row, and I'm going to cut off a long tail of my yarn, and I'm going to use that tail to sew the hole closed. But first I'm going to add a bit more fiber fill. Then, using the tail, I'll sew the bottom of the foot closed using a ladder stitch, and I'll use the rest of the tail to sew the end of the foot to the loop at the end of the wire skeleton leg, just like I did for the arms and the head. I've finished sewing the bottom of the foot closed. Before I make the next leg, I'm going to make sure to finish stuffing the body of the doll. And now I'm going to make the other leg. I'm going to pull up a loop using the same color into one of these skipped stitches at the base of the hips. I'll start at the back. Then chain 1, and that's going to count as the new first stitch of the row. So I'm going to mark it with my bobby pin. Then I'm going to work a row of single crochet into each of these stitches for 1 row, including these stitches that I marked earlier that I already worked into at the front and the back of the body, and into the front loops of the 3 chains that I made at the middle. In this row, I'll also remember to decrease 3 times at the back of the row to blend the leg with the rear, just like I did when I was making the other leg on the other side. And make sure that you're working your stitches in the same direction as before, from this side to this side. Alright, I've gotten to the middle, so I'm going to work into that first marked stitch, then into the chain in the middle, and then into the last marked stitch, then decrease 3 times at the back to blend the leg in with the rear, just like I did when I was making the other leg on the other side. And now this leg should be the same number of stitches as the leg on the other side. Now I'm going to repeat what I did on the other side to create this other leg, starting with a row with 2 increases on each side, then repeating a row of regular single crochet, then 1 row with 1 decrease, to gradually slim the thigh just like I did on the opposite leg. And I'm just going to continue to make the other leg exactly the same way. And now my doll is finally finished. As a last finishing touch, I'll use a yarn needle and some yarn of the same color to shape the body. This step is optional. If you want, you can just skip this step, but here's the difference that you can see between the body before and after sewing it into shape. I'll be putting up another video detailing that process next week. In the meantime, why not check out some of my doll hair and clothing tutorials to get some ideas for how to finish your doll. I'll put some links to some of my other videos in the description below. If you're interested in the written pattern, you can find the link to my pattern store on Ravelry, where you can find all my designs, in the description below. I really love the way this design turned out, and I'm excited to use this doll as a base for making a bunch of doll characters. What kind of doll do you think I should make? Let me know in the comments. And as always, if you use this technique to make a doll of your own, I'd love to see your interpretation. You can find all of my social media links in the description below, or you could tag me on Instagram at LizFairy. If you enjoyed this tutorial, you could press the like button, or share it on social media, and if you'd really like to help out the channel, you can donate to my Patreon. You can get some pretty cool perks through Patreon, like seeing my videos early, access to some of my prototype patterns, and discounts in my Ravelry store, depending on your level of donation. You can find out more about that at patreon.com/fairyrings. You could also subscribe and click the bell icon so that you don't miss my next video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!